Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we are going to be looking at branding. You shared some fascinating material about this guy, Brando. And he's done some really interesting stuff, especially in the world of home appliances, which I know might not sound the most glamorous, but it's actually incredibly interesting.
Yeah. And what I find really fascinating about Brando is that he's not just an academic, you know?
Yeah.
He's actually been out there in the field building and refreshing brands for over 25 years.
Yeah, so this is a guy with some real-world experience, and he's decided to share those experiences and insights through his company, the Brando Group, which I think is pretty cool.
Definitely. And the Brando Group is really centered around this concept of B plus bang, which is encouraging individuals and brands to be more, be more inspired, more connected, more challenged.
Yeah, it's really a powerful concept. It kind of speaks to that human desire to want to grow and to push those boundaries. So I guess for our listener, what would it mean for you to be more? What areas of your life or your work could benefit from that kind of thinking?
Yeah, that's a great question. For now, let's get into some of the specifics of Brando's work. I mean, he's been called the mastermind behind a lot of what we see in the global branding landscape, and for good reason. One of his most interesting case studies, I think, is the revitalization of the TOSHIBA brand. Toshiba.
Oh, yeah, Toshiba, of course. Definitely a household name.
Absolutely. But, I think there's more to this story than meets the eye.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So Toshiba has a really rich history, dating all the way back to the late 1800s. They've been responsible for so many innovations, but like a lot of these heritage brands, they needed a refresh, especially to stay relevant in today's global market. And this became even more crucial after Toshiba was acquired by Midea Group, which is this huge Chinese company.
Wait, Midea Group? Is that pronounced My Dear Group?
Yeah, My Dear Group. It's an interesting name. And it really created this kind of culture clash, as Brando describes it. You've got this classic Japanese brand, Toshiba, which is known for quality and craftsmanship. Now it's part of this. Fast-paced, globally ambitious, Chinese conglomerate.
Yeah, that's quite a challenge.
Talk about a challenge.
Right. So how did Brando even begin to tackle this? You've got these two very different cultures coming together, and it must have been pretty tricky to find that balance.
Yeah, it was a challenge for sure. So Brando was tasked with leading this global brand refresh, and he really approached it by tapping into Toshiba's Japanese heritage, what he calls the Takumi Spirit.
Okay, the Takumi Spirit. I'm definitely interested to hear more about that. So what exactly is this Takumi Spirit, and how did it play into the refresh of the Toshiba brand?
Well, the Takumi Spirit is all about this deep-rooted dedication to craftsmanship, this meticulous attention to detail, a relentless pursuit of perfection. It's like you think of those incredible Japanese artisans. They spend years, sometimes even a lifetime, mastering their craft, whether it's like woodworking or pottery or, even the art of making sushi.
Oh, yeah.
That same spirit of precision and pride is really at the heart of what Toshiba was trying to recapture with this brand refresh.
Yeah. So it's not just about the products themselves. It's really about the philosophy, the ethos behind them.
Exactly. It's about imbuing the brand with a sense of artistry and dedication. And that's where the new slogan comes in. #DetailsMatter.
Details matter. I like that.
It seems like such a simple phrase, but it really perfectly encapsulates this renewed focus on the Takumi Spirit. And the essence of what the Toshiba brand is all about.
It's catchy. It's definitely memorable. And I think it speaks to that underlying value of quality and craftsmanship. But a slogan is just words unless you actually bring it to life, right?
Absolutely. And that's where Brando and his team really excelled. They brought this details matter philosophy to light across all sorts of different touch points.
Give me some examples.
So for example, they incorporated the iconic red square from Toshiba's branding into the visual language of the campaign.
Red square.
Yeah.
So simple.
Yeah.
Yet so recognizable.
Oh, right. It became this really powerful visual cue representing Toshiba's Japanese heritage, that sense of understated confidence, and of course the Takumi Spirit.
It's like a visual shorthand for everything that the brand stands for.
Exactly.
So what else did they do?
Well, they also created this incredible global brand launch film, which I highly recommend checking out. It's beautifully shot, and it really showcases Japanese craftsmanship in this really subtle but impactful way.
I love that.
Yeah.
So they're not just appealing to logic, they're appealing to emotions. They're making you feel something about the brand, not just telling you what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And they didn't stop there. They even extended this concept to their booth at IFA Berlin, which is one of the biggest consumer electronics shows in the world.
Oh, that's smart. IFA is a huge platform.
Yeah.
So that's a chance to really make an impact on consumers.
For sure.
What do they do at their booth?
So at their booth, they encouraged visitors to engage with the details matter idea in this really interactive way. They had all these displays where you could take pictures and really focus on the details of the products, the craftsmanship, the design elements, things that you might otherwise miss. It was a fantastic example of how to create a cohesive and memorable brand experience.
Yeah, it's taking that slogan, details matter, and turning it into an action, an invitation to participate.
I like how Brando thinks beyond just the traditional, advertising formats.
Yeah, he's very much about creating this holistic brand experience, not just bombarding people with messages.
So another aspect of Brando's work that I find really interesting is this concept of building brand houses. He mentions this a lot, especially in his work with Toshiba and other brands within the Midea Group portfolio. Can you break this concept down for our listener? What exactly is a brand house, and why is it so important? So think of a brand house as a structured framework, like a blueprint, if you will, that helps you define and articulate the essence of a brand. It's not just about a logo or a tagline. It's about going deeper, understanding the core values, the personality, the target audience, the key messages, even the visual identity.
Yeah. So instead of just thinking about a brand as like a flat image,
Yeah.
you're really building a whole house around it.
Exactly.
With different levels and elements that all work together to create this really cohesive structure.
And each level or floor, if you like, of the brand house represents a different aspect of the brand. So, for example, the foundation might be the brand's history and heritage, while the next level up could be its core values or its brand promise. And then you have levels for things like target audience, brand personality, unique selling proposition, and so on.
It's like building an actual house. You need a solid foundation, and then each level builds upon the one below it. So I can see how this approach would be especially valuable when you're working with a portfolio of brands, like Midea Group, where you need to ensure that each brand has its own distinct identity and positioning.
Absolutely. Brando talks about how even within a single company, you can have products that overlap in terms of features or price points, but the branding needs to be crystal clear so that consumers understand the differences between, let's say, a Midea microwave and a Toshiba microwave, even if they're priced similarly.
Right. You don't want your brands cannibalizing each other or confusing customers.
Exactly.
Each brand needs to have its own clear space in the market.
Exactly. And by building these brand houses, you create that clear framework for each brand, ensuring that they occupy distinct positions and appeal to different target audiences.
So for our listener, whether they're working on a personal brand or a brand for their business, this idea of building a brand house can be incredibly valuable. It's about thinking strategically, going beyond just like surface level branding, and creating a strong foundation for long-term success.
And what's great is that Brando doesn't just talk about these concepts in the abstract. He shares real-world examples from his own experience, like his work with Toshiba, Midea, Comfys, and other brands. He's literally been in the trenches building and refining these brand houses, which makes his insights all the more valuable.
Yeah, it's that combination of theory and practice that makes him so compelling. He's not just an academic spouting off jargon. He's a practitioner who's actually done the work and seen the results firsthand. And speaking of practice, one of the things that really struck me about Brando's work is his emphasis on the importance of translating brand positioning into tangible actions and experiences.
Absolutely. He's very clear that a brand positioning document is just the starting point. The real magic happens when you bring that positioning to life. Through your products, your marketing, your customer service, every touch point where consumers interact with your brand.
Like with the Toshiba refresh. It wasn't just about creating a new slogan and visual identity. It was about infusing that Takumi Spirit and that details matter philosophy into everything. From the product design to the global brand launch film to the experience at their IFA booth.
Exactly. And he also stresses the importance of consistency, of ensuring that every element of your brand aligns with your overall positioning. Otherwise, you risk confusing your audience and diluting your brand's message.
You can't be all things to all people. You need to have a clear focus, a strong point of view, and then deliver on that promise consistently across all your touch points.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another really interesting aspect of Brando's work. His use of storytelling. He's a master at weaving narratives that bring brands to life and connect with audiences on an emotional level.
Yeah, we saw that in the Toshiba brand launch film, where he used the stories of Japanese artisans to illustrate the Takumi Spirit and the importance of details. And he does something similar in his B+ podcasts, where he shares anecdotes and personal insights from his years of experience in the branding world.
Yeah, it's such a powerful technique. Because stories have this way of capturing our attention, making information more memorable, and creating this emotional connection. And in a world where we're bombarded with information constantly, being able to tell compelling stories is more important than ever for brands if they want to stand out and connect with their audience.
Stories make us care. They help us understand. And they stay with us long after the facts and figures have faded.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that Brando doesn't just tell stories about brands. He also encourages brands to tell their own stories. He sees storytelling as an essential tool for building brand authenticity, connecting with consumers, and differentiating yourself in a crowded marketplace.
It's about finding those unique narratives that capture the essence of your brand and resonate with your target audience.
Exactly. And that might involve highlighting your brand's history, sharing your founder's story, showcasing the craftsmanship behind your products, or even telling the stories of your customers and how they interact with your brand.
So for our listener, whether they're building a personal brand or working on a brand for their business, the takeaway here is to think about the stories that you want to tell. What narratives will capture the essence of your brand, connect with your audience, and make you stand out?
It's about finding those authentic stories that are both compelling and true to your brand's values.
And I love how Brando emphasizes that these stories don't have to be grand or epic. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the simplest ones, the ones that focus on the human element and the details that make your brand special.
Absolutely. It's about finding those little moments of truth that resonate with your audience and create a lasting impression.
And it's about understanding that those little moments of truth can be found even when you're dealing with seemingly vast cultural differences. And this is especially true in Brando's work with Toshiba and Midea Group.
That's a great point. Brando's experience with Toshiba and Midea Group is a perfect example of how to bridge cultural divides and create something truly special.
Okay, let's dive into that. How did Brando navigate those cultural complexities?
Well, he didn't just ignore those cultural differences. He really leaned into them, seeing them as an opportunity to create something unique and compelling. And he talks about this a lot, in the context of his work with Toshiba and Midea Group. You've got these two very distinct cultures, right? Japanese and Chinese, coming together. And it would have been easy to try to just impose one culture on the other, but he did something much more nuanced, and I think ultimately more effective.
So he found a way to blend those different perspectives without erasing what makes each one special. How did he manage that?
Well, he found that common ground, that shared value of craftsmanship and attention to detail, like the Takumi Spirit. While it's rooted in Japanese culture, it's something that can resonate with people all over the world.
Yeah, it's a universal language in a way.
Exactly.
And by grounding the Toshiba brand refresh in this shared value, Brando created something that was both authentic to the brand's heritage, but also appealing to a global audience. It's like he found the thread that connected those two cultures and wove it into the fabric of the brand.
Yeah, and I think what's really insightful is how he talks about navigating those complexities of working within, a global organization like Midea Group. He doesn't sugarcoat the challenges, but he also emphasizes the importance of respect, understanding, and finding that common ground, recognizing that different cultures have different ways of doing things, and that's okay.
That's so important, especially in today's world. I mean, we're constantly interacting with people from different backgrounds. And being able to navigate those cultural nuances can make or break a project, a relationship, even a brand.
Absolutely. And Brando, through his experiences with Toshiba and on Midea Group, shows us how to do it right. I mean, he even shares some pretty funny anecdotes about, some of the cultural clashes that he experienced, like differences in pace and approach between the Japanese and the Chinese teams. But what really shines through is his ability to build those strong relationships and create a shared vision for the Toshiba brand, despite those differences.
So it sounds like he embraced those differences rather than seeing them as obstacles.
Exactly. And I think that's a powerful takeaway for all of us. Cultural differences, while they can present challenges, can also be a source of creativity and innovation. It's about finding those points of connection, those shared values that can bridge the gaps.
And create something truly special. Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Brando has shown us how to build strong brands, how to navigate cultural complexities, and how to create compelling narratives that resonate with audiences around the world. But perhaps even more importantly, he's shown us the power of embracing differences, finding common ground, and striving for something more.
If you are intrigued by what we've discussed today, I definitely encourage you to check out some more of Brando's work. We know he's got the company, the Brando Group, and he's written this book called 8 Years in China, which I'm sure is full of even more fascinating stories and insights.
And remember, as Brando would say, be more curious, be more connected, be more inspired. The world is full of fascinating people and ideas just waiting to be discovered.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.